There are exactly 3 words that can stop a traffic stop cold, protect you from a criminal record, and have you back on the road in under 2 minutes. And most people have never been told what those words are. In fact, the people who need them most, the people who are most likely to be targeted, most likely to be confused, most likely to say the wrong thing at the wrong moment, are the very people who have spent their whole lives being taught never to use them. If that sounds like you, then stay right here, because what I am about to share in the next few minutes could be the most important legal information you will ever hear through a car window. And before we go any further, if you are new to this channel, hit that subscribe button right now. Every single week we break down your legal rights in plain, clear language. No confusing legal jargon. No law school textbooks. Just the truth about what the law actually says and how it protects you. Subscribe now so you never miss a video that could protect your freedom when it matters most. Now let us get into it. I want you to picture something for a moment. You are driving home. You have not had a drop to drink. You are not speeding, or at least you do not think you are. Suddenly, you see the lights in your rearview mirror. Your heart does what hearts do in that moment. It sinks. You pull over. You take a breath. And then the officer appears at your window. And everything that happens in the next 60 seconds will determine whether you drive home tonight or whether tonight becomes a story you spend years trying to explain. Here is what most people do not know. A traffic stop is not just a traffic stop. It is a legal encounter with rules, rights, and boundaries that apply to both you and the officer. The problem is that you were never taught those rules. You were taught to be polite. You were taught to be cooperative. You were taught that if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about. And while those instincts come from a good place, in the legal reality of a traffic stop in 2026, they are quietly working against you. Let me explain how this actually works. When a police officer initiates a traffic stop, they have been trained in something called a contact and cover strategy. Part of that strategy involves conversation. Not friendly conversation. Investigative conversation. Every single question an officer asks you during that stop, where are you coming from? Where are you headed? Do you know how fast you are going? Have you had anything to drink tonight? Is not small talk. It is testimony collection. The officer is building a record of your words, your tone, your body language, and your story. And they are listening for anything that does not add up. Now here is the part that most people miss entirely. You are not legally required to answer any of those questions. Not a single one. And here is where those 3 words come in. The 3 words that can protect you and the investigation before it starts, and have you back on your way in minutes are simply this: I invoke silence. Or more formally, and this works every time, I am invoking my right to remain silent. That is it. That is the whole thing. 3 to 6 words that trigger a constitutional protection that has been in place since 1791. I know what you might be thinking right now. You are thinking, but saying that will make me look guilty. And I want to address that directly because it is the single most dangerous misconception in this entire conversation. Invoking your right to remain silent does not make you look guilty. It makes you look informed. There is a profound difference. Guilt is an emotion. Invoking your rights is a legal act. The Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution does not say you may remain silent if you happen to be guilty. It says you have the right to remain silent. Period. Full stop. For everyone. Regardless of what you did or did not do. The reason this right exists is not because the founders wanted to protect criminals. It is because they understood something that is still true today. Innocent people can talk themselves into serious trouble. And they do. Every single day in courtrooms across this country, there are people sitting at defense tables who have no criminal history, who committed no crime, and who are there for one reason alone: they kept talking when they had the right to stop. Let me walk you through a real-world example so you can see exactly how this plays out. Imagine a 68-year-old woman, a retired teacher, clean driving record, never been in any legal trouble in her life. She gets pulled over late one evening for allegedly rolling through a stop sign in her neighborhood. She knows she stopped. She is certain she stopped. So when the officer approaches and asks, "Ma'am, do you know why I pulled you over?" she says, "I think so, but I am not sure I did anything wrong. I did stop at that sign. I always stop there. I know that intersection well. I drive through it every day." In those 4 sentences, she has just handed the officer a road map. She has acknowledged awareness of the sign, which establishes that she knows the law. She has asserted she stopped, which puts her in direct contradiction with the officer's observation. She has mentioned she drives through that intersection every day, which tells the officer this is a habitual route and raises the question of whether this habit has bred carelessness. And she has engaged with the premise of the stop, which means she is now a participant in the officer's investigation rather than a protected citizen exercising her rights. Now imagine instead that she took a breath and said calmly and politely, "Officer, I am invoking my right to remain silent." She hands over her license, registration, and proof of insurance as the law requires, and she says nothing further. In that version, the officer has no ammunition, no contradictions, no admission of awareness, no conversational thread to pull. The stop runs its course. The officer either issues a citation or does not, and she drives home with her rights intact and her record clean. This is not a hypothetical legal theory. This is the difference between outcomes that people actually experience, and the gap between those two outcomes comes down entirely to knowledge. She knew her rights or she did not. That is the whole game. Now let us go deeper, because there is more to protecting yourself during a traffic stop than just staying silent. The first thing you need to understand is what you are legally required to provide and what you are not. You are required to provide your driver's license, your vehicle registration, and your proof of insurance. That is the law in every state. You hand those over without hesitation, without comment, without turning it into a conversation. You hand them over and you stop. You do not explain where you are going. You do not apologize for the stop. You do not volunteer any information about where you have been or what you have been doing. You provide the documents, and you exercise your right to remain silent on everything else. The second thing you need to understand is your right regarding vehicle searches. This is one of the most misunderstood areas of traffic stop law, and it is also one of the most consequential. If an officer asks you, "Do you mind if I take a look in your vehicle?" that question is critically important for one very specific reason. They are asking because they do not have the legal right to search without your permission. The Fourth Amendment protects you from unreasonable searches and seizures. A voluntary consent to search is one of the primary ways that protection gets waived, and most people waive it without even realizing they had it in the first place. When an officer asks to search your car, you are allowed to say, and you should say, "Officer, I do not consent to a search of my vehicle." Say it calmly. Say it respectfully. Say it clearly. And then say nothing more. If the officer has probable cause to search, meaning they can point to specific, articulable facts that justify a search without your consent, they can proceed regardless of what you say. But if they are asking, that means they are relying on your permission. Do not give it. Not because you have something to hide, because you have rights to protect. The third area that most people never think about until it is too late is the issue of how long a traffic stop can actually last. A traffic stop is not an open-ended legal event. Courts have been very clear on this. A traffic stop must be reasonably limited in scope and duration to the purpose for which you were stopped. If you were pulled over for a broken tail light, the officer can address the tail light. They can check your license and registration. They can run your plates. But they cannot indefinitely extend the stop to fish for a reason to do more. If you feel that the stop has gone on longer than it should, if the officer is asking questions clearly unrelated to why you were pulled over, or if it feels like they are simply waiting for you to say something they can use, you have the right to calmly and respectfully ask, "Am I free to go, or am I being detained?" That question is not confrontational. It is not a challenge. It is a direct legal question that the officer is required to answer. And once they answer it, you know exactly where you stand. There is one more instinct I need to address, and this one runs particularly deep. Do not apologize. I know that sounds simple. I know it sounds almost rude when you say it out loud. But here is the legal reality. An apology during a traffic stop is not just a social nicety. It is a statement. And statements made during traffic stops can be, and are used as evidence. When you say "I'm sorry, officer," even reflexively, even automatically, even because that is just how you were raised to talk to authority figures, the legal system can interpret that as an acknowledgement of wrongdoing. It does not matter that you meant it as a courtesy. What matters is how it reads in a report, how it sounds on a dashcam recording, and how it gets characterized if this stop ever becomes something more than a stop. Stay calm. Stay neutral. Stay polite without ever crossing the line into providing information you are not required to provide. You can be a completely respectful, cooperative, dignified human being while simultaneously exercising every single one of your constitutional rights. Those two things are not in conflict. People who tell you they are in conflict are wrong, and the consequences of believing them can follow you for years. Let me also say something about the specific situation older drivers face, because this matters and it does not get talked about enough. If you are over the age of 60, the stakes of a bad traffic stop are uniquely high for you. A reckless driving charge or a citation that raises questions about your awareness and your reaction time does not just affect your driving record. It can affect your insurance. It can trigger a mandatory license review. It can be used by family members or physicians in conversations about whether you should continue to drive at all. The traffic stop is not just a traffic stop. It is a data point that enters a system that will follow you. That is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to make clear exactly why what you say and do not say in those moments matters so profoundly. Knowledge of your rights is not paranoia. It is not distrust. It is preparation. And preparation is something that every responsible driver owes themselves. So let us bring it all together. The three words, "I invoke silence," or "I am invoking my right to remain silent," are the foundation. Everything else builds from there. You hand over your license, your registration, and your proof of insurance because the law requires it and only it. You decline to answer investigative questions by invoking your Fifth Amendment right. You refuse consent to any vehicle search by clearly and calmly stating that you do not consent. If the stop extends beyond its reasonable purpose, you ask whether you are free to go or being detained. And you never, at any point, offer an apology that can be read as an admission. Your rights did not come with an instruction manual. Nobody handed you a legal guide when you got your first driver's license. And most people spend decades behind the wheel never knowing what the law actually allows them to do and say in the moments that matter most. But that changes today. Because now you know. And knowing is everything. If this video gave you something you did not have before, I am asking you to do one thing right now before you scroll past. Hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications. Every single week on this channel, we put out videos designed specifically to help you understand exercise, and protect your legal rights. From traffic stops and police encounters to situations involving your property, your finances, your healthcare decisions, and your freedom. These are rights that matter more as you get older, because the system is more complicated, the stakes are higher, and the people around you are less likely to tell you the truth about what you are actually entitled to. Subscribe right now, so you never miss a video that could protect you or someone you love at the exact moment when it matters most.